In this video, I'm going to cover how I set my channel gain. Let's just jump right into it. So normally we would do this at the start of our practice. Quick sound check to sort of set our gain levels. Right now I don't have a band with me, so I'll be using some tracks that I've recorded, and the only difference you're going to see here is on the preamp section. I'm going to be adjusting trim as opposed to gain, just because these are pre-recorded. But let's move on from there, otherwise it's all the same. So I'll start with, normally I would start with the drums and work my way through, but right now we're just going to jump over. We'll go to the bass first, and then we'll go back to the drums, and I'll explain why in a little bit. So the goal that I have when setting gain is to get the signal level coming from the instrument into the board up to 0, or line level. Now, I'm using an Allen Heath SQ6, and they meter where 0 is line level. If you're using something like an X32 or a Wing, or multiple other ones, they measure in dBFS instead of dBu, and so that crossover point would be about -18 because your 0 is at the top. The easiest way to find where your point is one, you can check the manual. It'll tell you what the line level usually is on the meters, and then also when your meter goes from green to yellow, that's usually around your line level point. So that's the goal. I'm only using the meter. I don't have the channel up at all. I'm just adjusting the gain to get my signal level up to 0. So I would use my talkback mic, ask the bass player, okay, start playing probably a chorus from one of the more upbeat songs, something where they're going to be playing probably the loudest that they're going to be playing. And then as they're doing that, I'm going to adjust my gain, and I'm just looking at the meter. And I'm just bringing that up so it's sitting around that 0 point on the meter. I don't care what the number value for the trim or gain is that much. I'm just looking at the meter, and I'll adjust for volume later. So we've hit our 0 point on that channel. Our bass actually has 2 channels, and so with this one I'll do the same thing. We'll bring it up. Now the only time I'm really worried about what my gain setting is if it's getting really high, because then you can start getting some noise problems or chance of feedback depending on what the source is, but that's sort of a secondary issue. Like I said, the faders are all the way down. I'm just using this to get it so that it's spending most of its time around that 0 point. It's fine if it goes over a little bit or just a little under, but I'm trying to get it so it's spending most of its time around that 0 point. Now, now that I finished the bass, I would then just ask them to stop, ask the next player to start playing their instrument, and do the same thing over again. With the drum channels, I'll get them to go through one at a time and play each one individually, and just, with the kick, just, 4 on the floor, just keep going, and I'll make my gain adjustments at that point. So, start with the kick in, and I'm gonna lift up my gain, or in this case, trim, but I'm actually aiming for the +10 or just a little under that, without it clipping. So the reason for drums, especially, that I'm going for a +10 as opposed to 0 is that I know how the meters work on this mixer, and I can't change them. So the meters on the SQ are peak meters. It means that they'll show you the loudest thing in the signal, but they aren't actually showing you what the average signal level of each channel is. It's just showing you the loudest thing at that point. So with something like bass, acoustic, electric, piano keys, they're generally the peak information, and the other option would be RMS, so the average information is pretty similar. So we're just aiming for that 0 point. With drums, they're generally more peaky. They have a really loud start, and then the rest of the volume is just the drum itself ringing out, and that's going to be a lot lower than the initial hit. And so that means that our peak level's up here, but our RMS might be all the way down here. So if you know that you're running peak meters and you don't have the ability to change them, then generally if something is going to be more of a peak type signal, you would just go up a little bit higher, because that'll give you about the same signal level as the rest of your channels. So we've got our kick in set to that +10. Do the same thing with the kick out. And I would just keep going through all the channels, get them to play the snare, do the top and bottom signal for that. And then I just noticed on the kick that I'm getting a couple peak lights here, so I'll just pull this one back a little bit more. And just work your way through all the channels that way. That would be the line check that you would do, or sound check, just before a practice. And then during the practice, right at the start, that's when you're going to make some minor adjustments, because when they start playing as a whole band, then you run into, they start playing a little louder, or some might play softer, and so you just have to make some adjustments there. But after the first couple of minutes of a practice, after you've done a proper sound check, then you generally don't want to change those gains unless you really have to. Because the problem you run into is this gain level that we're setting affects everything downstream. So if they've set their in-ear monitors based off of these gain settings, and then I decide, oh, I want more signal from my kick drum, and I turn that up, I've just boosted the kick drum in all of their in-ears, which can cause problems. The same problem also applies to our live stream. We're pulling from the same preamps, so we need to set that gain and sort of leave it unless you're having some issues where it's clipping. And that's about it. Thanks for watching the video. You can check out the rest of my channel for some other videos on similar topics. Thanks.